Thank you so much for joining the Northwest Church YouTube channel. If you'd like to follow along with the message today, you can check out the notes linked in the description below. Let's jump into the message.
So I want to get started tonight because, starting tomorrow night, we're going to talk about the empty tomb, and we're going to talk about what that means and all of that. I got to just stop because I'll let the cat out of the bag. But before the tomb was empty, there was a cross. Before the tomb was empty, there was a cross. In order for the tomb to be empty, there had to be a cross. It's what provided the moment for the empty tomb. And so this is Good Friday. It's a time that we remember and that we reflect on the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Today, the cross is a symbol of love and an emblem of hope. But on that Friday, the cross was a reality for Christ as he endured the most gruesome, excruciating, and humiliating death. The crucifixion was a capital punishment used by the Romans who strongly believe in the power of issuing justice. They had nearly perfected the ability to torture offenders. The last, worst device used to finally take the life of a lawbreaker in their system of justice was crucifixion on a cross. Now, this cross would have consisted of wood, mostly likely taken from a cypress or a pine tree. And a criminal who would be nailed to the cross would not die as a result of the torture, nor from the nails in their hands or their feet, but rather from suffocation, meaning literally the breath or the life would be taken from the person as they slowly died. So the death of Jesus on the cross was at the hands of Roman soldiers was not accidental or simply one of many ways by which he could have died. The crucifixion, the hanging of the convicted person on a wooden cross, the tree was reserved for the most despicable criminals. In fact, Roman citizens were rarely executed in this matter, leaving the cross as a feared symbol of the most cruel instrument of justice. Yet on that Friday, it seemed as if no justice was served at all. Now, many of the Roman guards, including the governor Pilate himself, didn't believe that Jesus deserved the death that he endured. So how could this symbol of death and hate now be renowned around the world as a symbol of life and love? Well, the tree was the device on which Jesus died that day, but would be the very device that broke the curse for you and me on this day. In fact, the curse we were under came through the first man, Adam, and the first tree in the Garden of Eden. Paul said this in Romans chapter 5, verses 18 and 19. Yes, Adam's one sin brings condemnation. That word condemnation is translated literally as curse. Bring condemnation, curse for everyone. But Christ's one act of righteousness brings a right relationship with God and a new life for everyone. Because one person disobeyed God, many became sinners, including you and me. But because one other person obeyed God, many will be made righteous, which again will include you and me. Adam sinned in the garden, and the curse began because of their disobedience. But Christ obeyed, and now we are no longer cursed because of Adam's disobedience. So you might ask, well, how did Christ obey God the Father? Here's what Paul said in Philippians chapter 2 and verse 8. He humbled himself in obedience to God, and he died a criminal's death on a cross. In his humanity, Christ did not want to die, but he chose to obey God the Father for our sake. And if you really want to get a sneak peek at the humanity of Christ, then go and read the account of the Garden of Gethsemane when Jesus is about to go to the cross. And when you read that, you can literally feel the struggle that he was in. He was struggling between his will and the will of the Father. But why would Paul say Christ's death was a criminal's death? Watch this. In Galatians chapter 3, verse 13, Paul says, but Christ has rescued us from the curse pronounced by the law. When he was hung on the cross, he took upon himself the curse for our wrongdoing. For it is written in Scriptures, cursed is everyone who is hung on a tree. So here in Galatians, Paul is making an Old Testament reference to the law in Deuteronomy when God spoke to Moses and said this: if someone has committed a crime worthy of death and is executed and hung on a tree, watch this, the body must not remain hanging from the tree overnight. You must bury the body that same day. For anyone who is hung is cursed in the sight of God. So on that Friday, in the sight of God the Father, Jesus was hung on a tree to demonstrate the curse rested upon him for our sake. Christ, who was sinless, became our sin, as Paul said in 2 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse 21. God made him who had no sin to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. So Christ, who is life, became our death. He took all the bad that we are and we have, and he gave us all the good he is and has. This is an exchange that we did not deserve. And it is a continuation, it's continued exchange every day. Because we did not just sin one time, but we continue to change takes place again. This is an exchange that we did not deserve and could never earn. So the blessed became cursed, so the cursed could be blessed. Through dying a criminal's death, although he had committed no crime, Paul said that he rescued us. That word rescue in the original language literally means to redeem, or it means to pay a ransom for. So the work on the cross, Jesus redeemed us. He paid a price. He paid a ransom for our sins. We were held prisoner or captive by the curse, and he paid our ransom in his own blood so that you and me, we might be free today. This is why the final words of Jesus on the cross were, "It is finished." He was saying the debt that was owed is no more. It's been paid in full. It's over. The curse has been paid, and he breathed his last breath. And according to John chapter 19, verse 30, he bowed his head and he gave, watch this, he gave up his spirit. Now remember, the aim of the Romans crucifixion is the criminal would die of suffocation, literally fighting for breath on a cross. But go back to John chapter 10 and verse 18, when Jesus said, no one, watch this, no one can take my life from me. Why? Because I sacrifice it according to my own will. Sacrificially, I do it on my own. For I have the authority to lay it down when I want to, and also I have the authority to take it up again. For this is what my Father has commanded. So the Romans did not take the life of Jesus with his last breath. Watch this. He gave it up on his own free will. And you and I, we are the reason that he chose to go on that cross and to give his life, to shed his blood as a ransom to pay the debt of our sin. It's incredible when you think about the power of that moment, that the blood had enough authority and power to pay the debt of sin that went all the way back to the Garden of Eden and will continue until the return of Jesus Christ. That was a powerful moment when Jesus shed his blood on the cross. And it was all for you and for me. So the Romans did not take his life. He gave it up. Now rewind to the first day of man. God literally breathed His breath into the first man, Adam, and He gave him life. But on this day, Good Friday, life was given through one man, Jesus Christ. So the same breath that gave life to Adam was the same breath that left Christ and is now been given to you and me. It was on this day that Jesus reached back to the first day to redeem the first man and to reach forward to redeem the last man. On the cross, Jesus was cursed and He died so we may be blessed and live again. I love what Jensen Franklin said, Pastor Jensen Franklin. He said, the worst day in the world became the best day in the world. I want to leave you with this word today. I wrote it in my notes before I left the office this afternoon. As we talk about Good Friday, as we remember what took place on the cross and how powerful that moment was to remove our sin and to make us righteous with God the Father, it reminds me of this, that God has and will always have the final say. So it doesn't matter what circumstance you have in your life tonight. It doesn't matter what season of life you may be in. Doesn't matter how bleak it may seem, how dark it may seem, and it may seem impossible. Just like on that Friday night, I assure you, Satan thought he had won the battle. That Jesus was dead and there was no way He was coming back. It was dark. I can't imagine the mood in heaven. I cannot imagine the atmosphere in heaven on that Friday night. But I want you to know that even as Jesus gave up His last breath, He knew that His Father has and will always have the final word. So that's my word to you this evening, that God the Father has and will always have the final word over your life. Would you stand with me this evening?
Thank you so much today for tuning in and checking out the message. We hope you were encouraged. And today, if you'd like to make a decision to become a Christ follower, please contact us. You can do that by simply clicking the link in the description below. And today, if you'd like more information about Northwest Church, or you would like to plan a visit to come visit us in person, you can simply do that by going to northwestchurch.tv. We'd love to meet you. We'd love to connect with you.